Hey guys, it is Kinktober. We know what that means. It's time to get a little sexy. It's also Pro Touch Month, so you know we're going to talk touch. And in addition to that, we're gearing up for Men's Health Month, so we're going to get a little bit into that. And you know that your girl Kash got you, because I'm going to bring you somebody who's going to help bring all of those things to the front. Get sexy, get comfortable, get some wine or take a shot. And if neither of those is your vices, at least come after you watch this episode. At minimum, catch a nut, okay? This is the Business of Pleasure podcast, y'all, where confidence and sexy and success and all the things that feel good is what we do over here. And today, I'm bringing to you someone who I have grown to have a little bit of adoration for now. I'm still getting to know him, so I plan to get all up in his business on this episode, just a little bit, just comfortably and with consent, because it's sexy, right? Consent is sexy, y'all. We can actually make it something that people feel good about and stop making it sound like, oh, the rules are. It keeps you safe, it keeps you sane, and it keeps you sensual. So I'm going to introduce to you guys Master Radiant.
Hello. How's it going?
Hey, first and foremost, can we just talk about your name?
Yes.
Why Radiant?
So the name was actually given to me. It was one of those things where I was walking through the space with just like a normal nickname, just kind of walking around because I didn't want to go with my given name.
Given name, right.
And one of my mentors, shout out Miss Violet down in Baltimore, we were in the club one day and just working on some stuff. And she was just like, you know, you gotta come up with a name that represents you, that comes with what people feel when they're around you. How about Radiant? And I was just like, that's amazing.
Well, you know, it's so funny because she thinks about how people feel when they're around you and that people feeling radiant. But the root word radiate is where I went first. And what do you radiate? What do you put out that makes others feel radiant? So I don't know, like maybe that was kind of where my head went when I heard it. And then you think of radiant, and it's one of those words that to me can feel, it's a sensual word because it's kind of like about exuding. What do you pour out? What do you give? But it's also a firm word, right? Radiant, right? And so when you say it, it feels like triumphant. It feels like, you know what I'm saying? All those strong words and things that. So I was very curious about that because I know that picking a name as you step into a kink lifestyle is so key because that name really becomes who you kind of embody. I too had my name given to me by my audience, actually.
Oh yeah.
I remember, actually it started with a conversation with my girl Bittersweet Tea, who is one of the founders of Limitless Lux LS. And at the time they were doing, she was planning her Fed, formal erotic dining events. And we were having this talk because we get on the phone. We always say, hey girl, this won't be that long. 10 hours later, we still on the goddamn phone. So for an hour and a half, I kept saying to her, you know, I got so annoyed because people kept calling me mistress, and I don't like that, right? But I think because of my somewhat dominant energy, people would automatically put that title. You know what I mean? So long story short, I said calling me mistress denies my my S-type side because I got a lot of different S-types up in here. But I'm a switch. I don't identify on one side or the other, and I needed something that embodied both sides and felt like it captured the power of it. So I went on live and I was ranting to my audience and I was like, don't call me mistress. Don't call me this. And I'm also not this, you know, because I also don't identify as fully submissive. I'm very aware. You can't just, you know, because telltale, move that 2 seconds to the left. I can't ignore that side, you know, Tahoe laughing because, you know, I can't even help my bossy side sometimes. So I was like, I just know I want people to feel something. Like, so I really wanted to be that. And a couple of my audience members said, you know, when I watch you, I'm so engaged. It's like the eye contact you make with the camera. It's like I'm under a spell. And that conversation led to someone saying, it's like I'm enchanted. And then someone said she's an enchantress. And then that became that. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I like where you're going. And then one of the people said, it doesn't matter. I feel like whether I was under you or on top of you, I would still feel captivated. And I was like, you better stop praise kinking and me in this mother chat. So I feel like the name, it has so much significance.
Yeah.
So I know that it was given to you, but does it feel like the name?
Yeah, 100%. Like, so it was one of those things where, like I said, I wasn't really looking for a name. I wasn't really out here, trying to discover one. And when it came to me, it just hit. One of my favorite book series, the Stormlight Archive. The main characters, the heroes, the people who do the saving of the world, they are the Knights Radiant, right? So this is completely separate from the name.
Now I'm finding out we're gonna bond on other levels because I'm into some mystical, I'm into anything empires, all of that kind of stuff. But like you just said, it's like it kind of has a feel to it too.
Yeah.
But when you hear radiance, it's elegant. So it's not it's stuff that can look a certain way, but you do it in this way that looks sophisticated, which honestly I think really encompasses what I watched of a lot of your content.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
Appreciate
It
that.
definitely looks you actually slow down a lot of your videos. And people don't think about that simple choice to do that. Tells me a lot about your brain.
Yeah.
Because it tells people to take their time. It tells people to not rush. It builds up excitement. It builds up the anticipation of like, where's this going? But you're watching it happen in like these vivid slow motions. So you really are experiencing, not visually, right? From a visual stimulating perspective, you're seeing these flames, you're seeing that spank, you're seeing. So I noticed, I was like, he slows down a lot when he puts it up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've done that intentionally or not, but it was something that really caught my eye.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely intentional. It's one of those things where oftentimes when you're doing impact play, when you're doing vlogging, it can be very fast,
Yeah,
right?
rigorous.
It can be very fast. And if you're not the person getting vlogged, you don't really see the nuance to what I'm doing, right? Like if I come with a hit that's a little more full force versus one that's a little more of a
brush, kind of like
brush, those are two completely different hits, right? And if the person who's feeling it feels it, but if you're watching from the other side, I'm trying to give you a way to catch what I'm doing,
to see that I'm intentionally hitting it one way versus the latter. Okay, that's the educator in you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it.
So really quick, right? I would say that this is one of the things that I'm always curious about for men in any sort of kink lifestyle, period, whether it's BDSM or anything beyond. Women, number one of the most common number one challenges that I feel like a lot of women experience is that when it comes to their partners, introducing them to anything outside of a vanilla norm is super challenging, because getting them to be open-minded, not allowing them to see it as some form of competition or some sort of thing, as opposed to seeing it as tools, as opposed to seeing it as aids, as opposed to seeing it as something else. They that's kind of where they get stuck, right? And whereas women are like curious and openly want to explore these sensualities typically. Now, I'm not saying this is always, right? As a man, what drew you to look to the far other side and say, what's going on over there, and kind of begin your journey into exploring BDSM lifestyle?
Absolutely. So for me, I don't know. I think maybe just my perspective has always been kind of different, right? Like the way I look at it is, I got these hands. I've been using these hands my whole life, right? I've been smacking ass. I've been, rubbing. I've been giving massages. This is something I've been doing forever.
All things
right?
good,
and
all things great.
And as I grew into trying to explore my kinky side, trying to get into that whole thing, the way I look at it is almost like if I'm building a house, right? I could take a hammer and take a nail and individually hit every single, nail into the board to actually build the house. Or I could use a drill, or I could use a nail gun. Why? That doesn't take anything away from me as an individual in terms of my proficiency in terms of building this house. I'm just using the tools available to me to complete the job as effectively and as efficiently as possible. So why would I
give yourself that extra labor and hold yourself back?
Exactly.
That is such an interesting perspective. I actually love the analogy that you gave there, because you're right. We use tools in so many other areas of life. If a lot of people are using AI, not that you can't think. Some of y'all, I mean, well, some of you may not be. They'd be like, ChatGPT, tell me who I am. Tell me who I can be. Tell me everything about me that I don't know. Like some people literally have
therapy and all that.
Right. But it's different when you become to use it as an aid, as opposed to like a full-on replacement. I'll say this from a woman's perspective. A lot of times I feel that those guys feel like bringing those tools in makes us see less of them when in fact it's the latter. Yeah. Right. But at the same time, the thing that makes this experience, whatever tool or whatever it is, feel the way it feels for me is you, right? Because 100%. My vulnerability to you, my trust of you, my ability to tell my body to let go, and you can give this person your trust. You've talked about your boundaries. You've talked about the things you do and don't like, and you've given them this kind of roadmap to at least know where to start, but being open to what they discover in you or bring out of you. So I have to trust you. I have to be connected to you to some degree, whether I've had 15 minutes to get to know you, whether I've had whatever, there has to be something about you that says, here, right? 100%. And so now you're using these tools and you're surging my pleasure. And I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, dang, I ain't even getting no dick yet. This is what's happening off of just a look, this and that and this and that. I'm over here like, please, there's more. You know, oh my God, it is such. And then not to say that every BDSM aspect has to go into full-on penetrative, for sure, right? I want to be clear and say that for the record. But when it's
most of my scenes don't. The vast majority.
I'm so happy he said that because I planned on getting in his business about that. Did he see my notes, y'all?
What?
Because I was gonna ask you, like, okay, so I understand you stepping into it, and what kind of that perspective of saying like, why not, and why make life more difficult or make pleasing a person more difficult? But that's the thing. When I first got into BDSM. 8 years now, almost 9 years ago. The most exciting and exhilarating thing to me was the fact that a person could produce these responses for me without penetrating. And that was the thing that opened me up to kind of really wanting to deepen my own exploration of it. And so it was just like witnessing and seeing these out-of-body experiences. And I've always known that I've been one of those people who appreciated a lot of different inputs, right? And when I say input, I mean sensory input. For those who may not know, sensory input or sensory processing is the body's ability to process what's happening to your different senses. And everybody has a different fluctuation of what that looks like. So I've always known that I needed a variety of elements to make me feel grounded. I didn't know what could do it. And then I witnessed BDSM and I was like, try a little electricity. And I was like, and well, me like this. I was over there like, yeah. I was like, oh, no. This man in a kilt is not about to make me come on this table. I promise you. He was...
There do be a lot of kilts.
I refuse today for this to be... Funny. Yeah. So you do it all the time. Take me through, if you can, if you will, without giving away too many of your trade secrets, right? And how you actually bring a woman to have a release without ever having to penetrate.
Absolutely. So yeah, the first things first is you got to create a safe environment, right? No matter what, anytime you're doing kink, really in general, but especially when it comes to kink, consent is key. And the environment that you facilitate, the safety that you facilitate, is what allows you to play within that space, right? So first and foremost, you got to have a consent conversation, right? You got to have, I kind of treat it almost like a 3-act play where it's like, you know, almost like the metaphor of like a plane, right? You got to, before you take off on a plane, you got to do your pre-checks. You got to, you know, make sure that like, you know, the flaps work. You got to make sure that everything is going right. So I start my scenes always with a conversation about my safe words, right? I use the traffic light system where we're talking green, yellow, red. I explain that green is good to go. If anything, go harder. Yellow is ease up, slow down, switch tools. And red is a hard stop. So if you say red, whole scene's over. We're going to stop. We're going to have a conversation. the goal is never to get to a red, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if we are even close, hit me with a yellow, let me know what's going on, right? So giving them that agency to know that they can stop this at any time,
They're in
right?
control.
Exactly.
I think it's the greatest
Exactly.
misconception of submission for S type. So a lot of women, especially women of color, that relinquishment of that control. If I could define it in the simplest terms or in a vanilla term, right, and take completely the BDSM aspect away from dominance and submission, I would break it down like this. When you think about the dominance role, the dominant is essentially doing what the submissive wants, but not allowing them to fight what they want, right? However, still giving them a safety net in order to prevent it from going too far.
Exactly.
So if you correlate that to your own relationships, right, and your everyday sort of structure, this is the ability to follow someone's lead because you know that they've already considered you, right? You know that when you told him that your ass was allergic to seafood, he wasn't going to turn around and take you to Red Lobster, right? And because he paid attention to that detail and he picked a place intentionally that it avoided something like that, or because you said, I love this thing, and he took you to a place and said, I know you love mac and cheese. I saw they had that on the menu, so I thought you might enjoy this place. That consideration, that, oh, he thought about me. So the next time he says, baby, we're going to dinner, I don't have to be like, where are we going?
Yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean? So that's, I feel like that aspect of trust of their leadership becomes it. And also for that dominant, being able to lead in confidence, right? Knowing that they're making informed decisions, and that more than, like you said, the goal is not to reach the red, right? I don't want to have you feel like,
unsafe.
that you're uncomfortable or unsafe. So I'm taking these considerations, but also it becomes the responsibility of that person who's following the lead, or the S type, as we would refer to them as, to be upfront, to be honest, to be truthful, and giving that person everything that they might need to consider so that you avoid tripping wires. So I
will jump in there too, and it's also important for the dominant or the person on top to provide the space to ask the right questions too. Right? Because sometimes I do a lot of first contact. I do a lot of kink first contact where people, they don't know what they want. They don't know what they like. They don't know what they're going to be into, right? Obviously, if you're experienced, you can give a very clear breakdown of what you want this to look like. But if you don't know, you don't know. So what I always do when I start a scene is I ask the person, what would you want this to feel like? How would you want this to feel? Some people might say scary. Some people might say sensual. Some people might say explorative. And I can now have a tone,
guideline,
exactly, for how I want the scene to be.
I love that question, because even if you don't know exactly what you want, you can at least understand what you might want to feel.
Exactly.
And it kind of reminds me of when I'm working with clients, and I don't like them to focus on, a negative, obviously being powerful from a negative space. It's really hard for people to, but you just said it, it's that fact that so many people don't know that stagnates them. It kind of creates that paralysis of not being able to choose, or that hesitance of I'm curious, I want to try it, but I don't know. And meanwhile, it's supposed to be something that you can come into not knowing and coming out knowing, or coming out having more understanding.
Yes.
So you set the environment to allow them to communicate is the first thing I'm hearing, but also communicate with specifics around what they may or may not want to experience, or may or may not like.
Absolutely.
And get a tone established for the scene. Okay, and so once the scene is beginning and stimulation is starting, what are some of the tells that let you know, outside of the verbal cues of green, yellow and red, there's things you notice that probably let you know that you're probably on to the right thing, or you're hitting a spot that really needed attention, or something like that? How do you tell?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is intuition. I've been giving massages my whole life, right? So, I've been giving massages since I was a little kid, right? It's just always been a thing that I've always been able to read bodies very well.
Okay.
But some very obvious things are when a person leans into a hit. Sometimes what I always tell when it comes to DOMs or people on top is space and softness is just as important as aggression or hardness, right? You have to be able to, if I'm just going crazy and I'm just, hitting you as hard as I can over and over and over again, we're at a plateau. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go up.
It doesn't ascend and kind of escalate at a certain rate. It kind of just takes a person all the way there.
We need to have space. We need to have tops and bottoms, right? Like, peaks and valleys to the impact. So a big thing is like a person leaning in, right? So if I'm, doing like a nice rhythmic, not massage, but spanking, exactly. If I'm doing a nice rhythmic spanking and the person's kind of like arching their back, they're leaning into the spank, okay. I know that this is what we're trying to do.
How many of you guys arched your back when y'all heard that clap? I did. I'm not gonna lie. You're not alone. For 2 seconds, muscle memory kicked in, and we're working. No, but it's real because that sound is very, like you said, it's rhythmic and kind of like what music does, which is why music can be such a key element during 100%. A scene. Is that
I only do
it controls? It controls the heart rate. It varies that like you said, those highs and lows. So even just setting the right playlist can intentionally determine the tone or the mood or the shifts. Like there are certain songs that when they come on, like the lotus flower blossoms in the spring for me, and I'm like. And then there are other songs that kind of like really help me just like smelt into it, decompress into it, versus the more like ones that have these slow and then out of nowhere the beat and the song and everything is climatic. So I love that you.
Speaking of climactic, my favorite song, shameless plug, shout out, we all know who he is, Usher Climax.
Oh,
one of the best.
Oh, that
songs.
one has a great.
Oh my god,
build.
that build. The build is fantastic. I could start slow. I could start easy.
That where are you? Y'all know what I'm talking about. When we all do it, we be like, I'm on my knees.
Yeah.
And then what happens when he hits them high notes? You just go.
Yep.
Like it's like I love that he's another song that really kind of gets me, that I'll have to share with you or whatever the case is. And also because it's like 9 minutes long.
There we go.
You know what I'm saying? Go. You need that song. You ever hear a song and you love it? It's like 3 minutes and you just like, yeah, it's like before you into it, you like, yo, I needed more of that. Like, so I love that he actually made the song a lot longer than typical. So, but okay, Climax is one of your favorites. But when you're opening, I'm assuming because the warm up is also usually a little bit more depressed. Yeah, what would be one of your favorite songs to include during the warm up?
A go-to warm up song for me is a Special Affair by the Internet. It's just like, so I do a lot of scenes with Black women. It's the
okay.
Just
okay,
it's a thing. So
ding check.
So with that being said, it's like that rhythm is just in your soul, right? So if I'm boom, 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 if I'm just kind of going to the beat of the rhythm and you're feeling it in your soul, right?
Yes,
I can play with that anticipation, right? If I skip a beat, you knew that beat was coming, but if I didn't give it to you, what was that?
Oh, so it's like a deprivation.
A little bit.
It's a little bit of a deprivation.
And I'm picking up. I always start all my scenes, impact anyway, with hands. I can learn so much about you by how you receive different kind of hits. If I'm going more thuddy, more of like a straight, fist versus a slap.
That's such a big thing to know. I initially, if I could be honest with you, right, when I was in an earlier stage, and I'm sharing this because I think new people probably will relate to this. I didn't think that I was going to be appreciative of too much impact. And that's because the first experience I had with impact was stingy. And stingy is something I can tolerate. Yeah. It's not something I love. Yeah. If stingy is almost more of a punishment to me than the latter. I appreciate thud because I like that it's a grounding hit, that when I feel it, and then the vibration that I feel from a real, Now I'll take the sting But I require, if you're going to sting me, to soothe me,
Yeah.
and like an immediate shock treatment right away, not like continuously do it and then no, like sting a few times and then treat, sting a few. It's not so
not sustainable.
Yeah, and so eventually, if it goes on for too long, it will surge my sensory system, and I'll feel like my circuits are overwhelmed, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, that's why the warm up is so critical, because right now, when I'm doing a warm up, what we're doing is we're setting your nervous system up to be able to receive this impact, right? If I just come over and just, it's like, with your parents when you're a kid, like just come over, pop, just hit you crazy. Your nervous system immediately goes into a panic mode, right? You're immediately going into a place of fight or flight, and not saying that no one wants that, because there are a million different scenes for a million different people, right? But if you set a warm up correctly, if you actually soft touches, hit them with a little bit of thuddy, a little bit of stingy, find out what they like, what they don't like. I can find out everything I need to know with my hands, and then once I start going into my tools, I'm not getting that tactical feedback, but I already know what you're responding to, correct? Like, in the way that you need to. If you're a person who likes stingy, and I come through with one of these guys,
hits,
I know that if I'm coming in, if I'm using these floggers, for instance, so sorry about that.
It's okay.
But if I'm using these floggers, for instance, if I'm hitting you with just the very tips of them,
that's going to have a little bit more of a stingier than a thud execution.
Just like this, right? So I'm controlling how I'm hitting through the whole thing, but I'm remembering the actual warm up that we were doing initially, so I can play with that through the whole scene.
Okay. I like that. First of all, I appreciate your awareness of it. A lot of times, a lot of people who are leading or tops, they don't experience a lot of these sensations themselves. And so bad luck. That's always a bad sign. If a person themselves I'm telling you right now, because then they lack awareness of what it actually might feel like to another human. And even though they're not you and they might be a little different for you, it still needs to be some base level of
empathy.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that you hit it on the nose in speaking about how important it is, first of all, to just be noticing, a person's leaning in as opposed to pulling away. A person, that simple reaction that tells you that they're welcoming it versus they're tolerating it versus they don't really like it. So, okay. Now, I do want to, I do have one more question, which will take us into our next segment, which is our adult edutainment segment, right? And so you've talked a little bit about your name. You've talked a little bit about that identity, what it means to you, how you kind of got into this and what, open your mind up to it. I do have one question, because you said something, you work with a lot of Black women and people of color and kink. The judgment that can sometimes be experienced for people outside of the lifestyle, or people who are simply just not as open-minded, can be something. And then as a man, I feel like it's more socially acceptable for women to be into being spanked and getting flogged, all these things. But it doesn't appear sometimes to have the same reception for a man. So have you experienced in your journey feelings of people just not understanding, people judging you for your choice to kind of practice these things? Or do you feel like it's been a supportive process for you?
I think, if anything, it's been pretty supportive for me personally. I think we as dudes sometimes, I'm looking right into camera, I think we as dudes sometimes put ourselves in a box that ultimately nobody else is checking for. It's like, most of my boys, realistically, if they find out or know that I spank people for a living, they're like, whoa, wow, how? Like,
it's an excitement.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like, people, I feel like, oftentimes are so afraid of the judgment that they end up almost judging themselves. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, what are they going to say? And once they do say whatever they say, okay,
you
cool.
pretty much projected it outward and boomeranged it back to yourself and didn't even realize that really you're the only person holding yourself back. It's funny because You know, you guys are familiar with my man. But he shares a similar notion as he's spoken to, like, why he stepped outside the box. It was more like a why not. But also saying that, you know, basically people will deny themselves a lot of things that they might enjoy, being too worried or too consumed about what others, you know, might think, or what you were told is supposed to look like. Because that's another big piece. Like, a lot of this is based off of the beliefs that have been kind of put upon us. And if I could be honest, as people of color, a lot of the things that we do in BDSM feel like a surge of pain, when as a people, historically, it's been the one thing that we've been trying to get away from, being restrained, right? Chained down, told we can't move, told we can't, you know, so a lot of that, I think later on, it evolves into putting hands behind your backs and being cuffed, right? 100%. And experiencing domestic assault or sexual assault that has put us into contact with so many pain circumstances so frequently that the thought of intentionally going about it is like, you know, so even I find, like, I remember well before I was into a lot of this, I was always one of those people, you know. I remember one guy, I was like just having a casual conversation about like me, like, would you be open to me cuffing you? I just want to see, not that I want to do anything, I just to see how you feel in it. And he was open, but I kind of sensed some level of like nervousness, hesitation, and that's not completely a bad thing because naturally, but when I did it, he ended up crying. And for him, or whatever the case is, it basically was a trigger, right? He has somebody as a juvenile who had a lot of, you know, experiences with stuff like that. So like for him, you know, at that time, I didn't know what I know today also, but his reaction kind of had me like, what do I do? I was like, what to do? Right. You know, so I did what I'm a nurturer. So I did what I thought made sense. And we talked about it. And I never forget him saying, you know, to me, or whatever the case is, I said, why did you cry? I thought he was crying because it was bringing up bad emotions or whatever the case is for him. But it was actually, he was like, this is going to sound weird, but, you know, I had showed him the thing and I told him, like, here's how you can get out of it. You know, I did at least give him that and put it on or whatever the case is. And so when he put the cuffs on and he was sitting there and I was just sitting in front of him and I was like, how do you feel? And I was like, touch his arm, and that's when he started crying. So he was like, I never thought that I would be comfortable with it. And that's what made him get emotional. So it was like really interesting because that taught me, like, this stuff can make you reprogram. Not that it's a replacement for therapy.
No, 100%. Go to therapy. I'm in therapy.
Go to therapy. Chill. Go back to therapy. Like, seriously, because there are a lot of people who go into this irresponsibly unhealed. Oh, you went once. You went once.
That's how people. Well, I go all the time.
They've done one. Because I feel like a lot of people do enter this life with a lot of stuff unhealed, and it ends up coming out and
unhealthy ways.
It could be a lot. So but I do think go to therapy. But while you're going through, I know that Impact Play reprograms how I felt about getting spanked. You know what I'm saying? 100%. So okay, I do want to shift.
Yeah, absolutely.
And our adult edutainment segment, this is our segment where we take time to educate while also having, you know, the entertaining things happen. You might see some products, you might see some things go crazy in here, you might see a demonstration of something, who knows. But as to kick off the educating part of this, I want to talk about the therapeutic power of kink. I want to talk about the somatic releases that people experience. People don't realize that with a somatic release, it's really essentially the process of your body physically releasing stored emotional tensions, even sometimes psychological tension through forms of movement, forms of touch, forms of breath work, sensation. It also kind of allows any energy that's feeling trapped or oppressed or stressed or traumas, things kind of leave the body, right? And a lot of times when people have a somatic release, it leaves you feeling this sense of like lightness, balance, clarity, right? And I find that in BDSM, what people may not be aware of is that that's what they're experiencing a lot of, because you're surging the body from so many different elements that you're alleviating these tensions and these stresses, even if you don't realize you're doing it. And, you know, so you were talking about bringing women to that place without penetration. Do you feel that the reason why you're able to do that is because you're able to stimulate them in ways that their release or their orgasm almost feels spiritual, almost feels like an exhale that they've been waiting for?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it all is all connected, right? So you were talking earlier about sensation play and how, like, you know, different senses can like lead to different things, right? One of the things I always try to do with my scenes in general is to activate as many senses as I possibly can, right? So, you know, I'll put you guys a little on game, but one of the things I do with my floggers, for instance, is I coat them in lavender oil, right? So as I'm swinging my floggers,
You swinging lavender in the air, sir?
you're relaxing.
That's the extra. This is why they call him Master Radiant. This is what he radiant. He lavender.
You know,
This motherfucker's dangerous. Okay, I like that. That's actually, I put pheromones on things, and I put it in my hair.
There you go.
Right. I usually don't be telling people stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm putting you on game.
I put pheromones because you want people to feel that, but Dustin, the flogger and lavender. So, okay, so you're swinging it. Now you're getting this euphoric lavender in the air. And now what do you see is like when they first catch that first whiff, what does the reaction look like?
It's always funny because some people catch it and react like, is that lavender? Like, and it's like, blah, 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 yada, yada. But then some people, they don't even notice, but you can kind of just sense that their body is relaxing, right? Because especially with impact, kink in general, but especially with impact, you have to walk into every scene as if you've never played with this person ever before in your life, right? Because, like you were saying, stuff is built up. You might have got yelled at by your boss today. You might have had some really tragic news that came in your life. You might have just been in a pissed off mood, whatever. The same hit that you were loving last week might not be the same hit that you're loving today.
Oh God, I think so. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got relief just hearing you say those words. Did you know? Like, I literally was like, "Oh my God, yes! Please say that again." The hit that you experienced, that you enjoyed last week, may not be the same thing you enjoyed this week. Please, Master, please radiate them with your knowledge. Because at this point, please take it away. Because you are okay. I'm gonna shut up.
No, you're good. But yeah, no, 100%. Like when it comes to impact, you store a lot of energy in your body, right? So sometimes, and that's part of the reason why I ask what you're looking for out of the scene. Like, give me sensual, disciplinary, scary, whatever the case may be. Because if I'm hitting you, with the energy of a drill sergeant, and you're coming at me with the energy of Looney Tunes or like something that's like playful and fun, we're not having
we're having a mismatch.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're not, and
you're not reading the room.
Yeah, and you might have come in with this, intense Game of Thrones, super, whips and chains energy last week, and today you just want to be held and be soft.
Can I tell you something though? And I'm gonna keep it real because y'all know I call my sisters to the mat all the time when we need to. Y'all don't even know what y'all want, first of all, right? And the reason why I say that is because some of y'all think you just want to be choked up, grabbed, tossed down, rough play, whatever. But a lot of women don't have an awareness of their emotional state at a given time and what they actually need, and what your wants might actually will actually clash with what your true need is. So many women are so used to dealing with men or individuals who try to, for lack of a better term, fuck away their problems. You know what I'm saying? Give them good dick to shut them up. And they're so used to being told, this is what you want, be quiet, whatever. And then you're going to act like that again. And it can feel a little punishment, like, right? But like you just said, that's a conditioning to a degree, right? And then I've had women who I've topped, who they come and they giving all that zesty, they feisty energy, but then I'm paying attention to them, and I have to tell them, like, be still.
Absolutely.
Take a deep breath in, hold your breath. I said, don't breathe out until I tell you to. Right? I have to tell them, that kind of stuff. And I'll say, you want to be choked, but it will be all, I will be the one controlling that. Right? And I'm going to base on what I'm looking at, what I'm observing, and what you need. So if you came to me, you trust me, right?
Absolutely.
And if that's the case, allow me to guide you, because what you think you want ain't nowhere near what you need.
Yeah.
And like you said, that incline, I can get rough with you, but we're not starting there, because you know what I'm saying? So let's start here. Let's take you up, and then let's bring you back and send to you. So I just think women need to understand that when you have a person who you claim you trust, know that they're watching your communication from a lens you don't have.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's where trusting the guidance of your person is so key and so important, and recognize, even as women with my man, I tell him all the time, babe, I know what you need.
Yeah.
You don't realize it because you're so used to doing this thing that's gotten you by or gotten you over. But I realize that that's just pacifying your circumstances, not dealing with it. I'm looking at you and I see what you need is something way more than what you're used to getting. So
absolutely, yes. Sometimes, like literally, there will be times where I'll have somebody on the X or a St. Andrew's cross. I call it the X because
it's an X.
Yeah, you know,
like it's an X.
people have real it's a St. Andrew's cross.
It's X. Okay, we get it. But I gotta use all those syllables every time. Right. It's an X.
But sometimes I'll get somebody on the X. They're like, chain me up. I want to be like this and that and third. And I'm looking at them and I'm, doing my initial, start. And then before I even get to the tools, it's like, let's get some box breaths in. Let me rub your shoulders. Let's calm this down. Because I can literally see you breathing so hard, so fast. You're already at a yellow and we haven't started. So we need to bring this down, slow this energy down. And I've had people, like, okay, yeah, I want to do this. Like boom, boom, boom. And it's just like easy.
I call it ignorance on fire. Because ignorance doesn't mean you're stupid. It means you simply don't know, right? It's unknown. And it's on fire because you're excited. You see all of these things. They look super fun, especially for a newbie, right? Like, I just want to get tied up. I just want to do this. I want to be suspended. Oh, I want to hang from the air. Everything is exciting until you realize, no, there's a deep amount of things that need to go into the preparation for you to experience that, especially things like suspension and whatnot. And they don't realize that. You also have to educate yourself because you need to make sure the person who's facilitating, who's doing these things, also shows you and demonstrates that they have a knowledge of it.
Yes.
Because I've seen, I have witnessed rigging gone wrong in a sense that people haven't understood where not to tie, the rope, down to the type of rope that they're using. I'm like, this is Home Depot rope. You're trying to burn the hell out of somebody's skin when they don't realize even down to the material of the rope, there's rope design.
I'm not even a rope guy, but it's like, you got to know.
But you got to at least have a base understanding of certain things before you do them, and I think the reason why I was bringing to speak about how people don't always know what they need is because the body does tell you. And as a form of education, I want to give this to you all. Where you feel your pain, where you feel your tension, or whatever the case is heavily indicative of the need, how you might need it to be addressed, but also what type of thing you're carrying. So if a person comes to me and they say that they're having, a lot of headaches or whatever the case is, well, the term goes, heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? So that you have a heavy head. No wonder you're having headaches. Neck, shoulders, and neck tension. What do we say? You carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, connected to your neck, and so also the neck is connected to the throat. And so it could be indicative of your unspoken truths, your throat being closed up, not being able to really
and
be heard.
Hips too.
Yeah. Oh, we go too, baby.
Hips too.
And it's like so even coming down the back, like you said, the hips is like trauma. Usually when you see people with a lot of this, it's a lot of trauma storage. There's especially people who've had sexual trauma or it could be a sign of suppressed creativity. Like when you're feeling those blocks. So that goes for men too. Sometimes like men who are creatives and they don't feel like, I just can't figure it out. Or they can't get that revved up or that drive going. A lot of men have tight hips, right? And they don't stretch and they don't loosen themselves up either. But the back is two zones, right? The upper back is going to be more emotional repression and can also be indicative of your chest being closed up, not really feeling heard. But the lower back is usually where people hold fear, survival things, instability, fear of loss, financial stress. So loss of control, right? Because the back, sitting upright, right? If I'm sitting like this, my shoulders slump forward, my back is arched the opposite way versus being able to, So people don't know that, but you said like the hips and then also the legs and feet. Fear of movement is what people don't realize. Like if you're feeling like, oh, I can't get forward or I can't get grounded, I'm unstable, I'm not balanced, I can't get work-life balance. That means you're juggling a lot of things, so you're having a hard time, and that pain is going to be held in your legs and in your feet. But what I've come to find out is that BDSM has many ways, and kink has ways of relieving these things. Because if you have bad shoulders, it can be loosely running the flogger across the shoulders to kind of first relax them, that massage, you know what I mean? But heat, and I want to talk about that with you because heat is one of the number one decompressors that will loosen up the tension in any of those areas. So this man be swinging floggers with fire on it, y'all. And I'm a fire play person. I love me some fire.
There you go.
Okay.
I love that. There's
no sociopath in me. I don't want to burn no one's house down. I don't want to set no animals on fire, but you can set me ablaze. Right. But I'm curious for you because it also seems like one of your one of the elements you enjoy a lot. Can you tell me progressively learning fire, right? What were some of the things that you had to learn first as a baseline of information? And in what ways have you implemented fire and temperature play into a scene?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. So, little fun fact about me, I was in the Navy for 6 years, right? So one of the things, and all my sailors out there know, one of the things about the Navy that you don't know from the outside looking in is like 50% of your day is just learning fire safety.
Really?
Because one of the worst things that could happen on a boat is for a fire, if a missile hits the boat, things blow up, things are on fire. There's water coming in, there's also fuel, there's electricity, there's a lot of different ways a fire can be, had
inside I can see that.
So and there's no fire department, you are the fire department, so you're going to handle it effectively, right? So I have a very strong basis in understanding of fire safety, right?
Okay.
That's the first and foremost. You got to know what to do if something goes wrong, because no one can master fire. Fire is...
It's an element that literally is. You
can wield it, you can use it, but at the end of the day, you could burn your house down from the stove, right? At the end of the day, there's a
simple match or a candle top knocking over could take the whole roof down. Yeah.
You have to have your safety stuff in play first, right? So I have 3 steps. So the first step is a fire blanket. So wool is a flame retardant. So it won't burn. So if you have somebody, before we even get there, we want to talk about the perfumes. We want to talk about the scents. A lot of those are alcohol based, and what does alcohol do? It burns.
Yes, flammable.
Right. So we want to make sure that we're setting our environment up effectively first and for the canvas, i.e., the person's body, effectively. So not a bunch of heavy lotions with a bunch of scents. Like you can have lotions, but you don't want to have just put on a bunch of perfume and alcohol and things like that. So that's first and foremost. The second thing, you want to have your safety equipment, right? So you want to have your fire blanket. You want to have a bucket of water. You want to have your CO2. You want to have your fire extinguisher. You want to make sure that you have a progression, right? Because just like I was saying with the building the house, right? I'm not going to pull a sledgehammer out to put in, a nail, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go necessarily straight to CO2 when a fire blanket could have solved the
solved
issue,
it,
right?
right?
So, that takes a little bit of wisdom to be able to know, without getting into a whole fire safety course. It takes a little bit of wisdom to know the difference between what kind of fire that you're dealing with and what solution you're going to go for, right? But once we've gotten the safety stuff out the way and that's all taken care of, then we want to make sure that just like anything else, we're easing into it, right?
Okay.
You don't want to just go and start putting flames on somebody and then they're not warmed up, they're not ready for
I think my first time using fire on someone, I didn't even apply the wand directly onto their skin the first time. I just constantly transferred heat to my own hand and then touched them.
That's the classic way to do it.
To get comfortable at first, with also me gauging how long it takes when I'm holding it there, right, for it to start to actually feel like a little bit of a too much heat for me. And then, again, like you said, I said earlier, I don't think people should try things that they haven't experienced themselves. And if you notice when people use the fire wands, it's moving relatively quickly because you can't keep that heat steady for too 100%. Long.
It's just like back in the day when you had like a Bic, or I don't know if this might just be me as a kid, but like when you have a Bic, if you light it under your hand, you can have it under your hand for like a second or two before it starts burning, right?
Yeah.
But it's the consistent fire,
holding of the heat in that one spot that
the temperature is increasing and increasing. So if I'm using a fire wand, for instance, like you said, I'm moving very quickly across the body because I'm not leaving that heat in one spot, and there's a bunch of different nuances that come into it. But without getting too deep into fire wands, when it comes to fire flogging, there's definitely a place of engagement that you have to be willing to get into, right? So you have to know how to flog first off. You have to be good at flogging. You have to know what you're doing. Because you have to
control over that flogger. Because floggers can also get a little uncontrollable themselves if you don't have that good. Yeah,
exactly.
And it's all in the wrist.
First, you got to know what you're doing with a flogger, right? The second thing is when you're, just like you said, when you're applying that heat to somebody, you don't necessarily need to be going crazy on somebody off front. The heat that's coming, the waves of heat that are coming just from that, you're already feeling that, right? So engage with that heat first, before and foremost, and kind of, again, be reading the person, watching what they're doing, make sure that their hand signals are ready to go. Because fire flog is also very loud.
Yeah.
It's one of those things people don't realize is, when you watch like Indiana Jones or something, when he's got a torch and stuff, that's real. It's really sounds like that. It's really loud. It's... So if I can't hear your, green, yellow, red, I need to be able to see a
signal. Yeah.
So that's the second thing. When you, if I'm hitting you with a quick hit, that's not going to be nearly as hot as if I'm hitting you with a slow hit because
the heat is going to stay there a little longer.
Exactly.
Yeah. So interesting though. There's something that I observe. My voyeuristic side is fueled by my nerd. Shout out to my nerds. So I'm studying while I'm enjoying it, and I noticed that there is something that I do see a lot of folks do with fire that I think could be executed sometimes a little better, in the sense that I notice, and I don't think it's done out of ignorance. It's just like until someone tells you certain things, you might not have the information to impact your application, right?
Yeah.
So I look at it with a sexologist's brain, right? And as a sexologist, I know that he is a driver of arousal, right? But literally because of a few things. One, when you are hitting an area or one area is feeling a sense of heat for a certain amount of time, the body's natural response is to send blood, right? And so impact, that's why we see reddening, is because the body is saying, the body just wants to survive, no matter what, right? And so as a form of survival, why we bleed when we get a cut is because that's the body's way of sending blood to treat the area. And it surges more than you typically just have kind of flowing, because the body just goes, oh, alarm, someone's hurt, you're cut, you're burned, you're whatever. That being said, what people don't realize is technically, what is an erection? A
Blood
flow of
flowing
blood
your-
to the genitals. Same thing with the clitoral area, because actually what gets the clitoris plump, and it actually gets a little bit more plump. It sticks out a little bit more, and it's way more sensitive to sensation, is also a rush of blood flow. So with that in mind, a lot of times I see the fire wand going up and down, when I think that a lot of dominants will benefit from the heat coming towards the vagina and then towards the vagina, as opposed to this.
across the whole body.
Right, because you want to bring all the blood concentration here. So if that's where you're using the wand to control bringing the blood to that center genital area, where they're feeling the heat everywhere, that's going to decompress, but the highest concentration of blood is going to end up here. Even with impact, kind of walking it up, starting with lighter hits and get a little bit on the thighs, slightly more, because it's going to get that area like
tease.
Exactly. So, even in, non-scene like spaces, massaging towards that area, coming this way and coming this way instead of this. Because it's almost like you're bringing it to the center and then you're bringing it out, because the feet is a release space. So just sharing that, because
I love that.
That's why I think it excites me, because I'm very much so into the BDSM lifestyle, but I'm grateful because my clinical knowledge has me seeing things and going, but that should,
Yeah,
so,
100%.
So I would say, test it out and try it, but I've never had I've never not seen a positive result from gradually bringing it that way. Even with the nipples, if you want to sensitize the nipples, doing the same thing, bringing that concentration of something to that area. So, with temperature play, do you like to play with cool sensations?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why I love these floggers specifically, because these are brass handles, and all I got to do is put dunk them in water, the cold water, for 5 seconds or whatever, and they are freezing. And like you were just saying, all the blood that's going to, especially for impact play, all the blood that's going to your butt and whatnot, and it's hot. You're my butt's on fire. You hear that all the time, right? At the end of a really good scene. If I got these cold compress handles, I can take them, I can knead into your body with the cold. And now I'm pushing that blood away. I'm actually moving that energy from where it was and distributing it back to the rest of your body with that cold compress. So yeah, it's like if you have a bruise or something. If you take it with a bag of peas, put it on, it feels just as good, right?
It decreases the reddening. It stops the swelling. Like, you just hit it on. You're paying attention to simple things, right? Things that we do genuinely when the body experiences things.
That's what I usually. I usually save that for the aftercare part.
It's so interesting, because that's like I think that something I would love to see more in aftercare is actually fire, and I would like to see it after the cool. Like, if you think about like the function of an icy hot patch, right? And so it's like for me, I get surged or rushed with a cool sensation after a strong release. Some women have the reverse. They get hot, right? So knowing these things are really important, because it lets you know what aftercare might be most appropriate for that person. I have people who are like so hot, they like throw the blanket, they kick everything on the floor, like, get off of me, don't touch me. They need, they need to be cool. I'm one of those people who my oxytocin surge says, like, bundle me up, wrap me in care, toss me in a hot bath, like whatever. But to your point, I love the fact that you can vary the sensation with the same tool. That right there is, because also what y'all don't realize is, like, when you're doing all that stuff, you're constantly switching out and assessing, what am I using next? What am I doing next? When you got that tool that could be like it feels like Excalibur. I don't know how to describe it. It's like, with this one thing.
Big brass.
Yeah, so okay. I love that. Now we talked a little bit about sensory exploration and impact. I wanted to have a little fun with some of the products that are out here. And I also am curious, I'll talk about what some of them are, but before I tell you, just with you getting things in your hand, I want you to describe how you would use it. Okay. Just like, I haven't had much time with this, but this is what I would do with it. Right. So I'll start relatively simple. And I'll grab the Heart Desires paddle.
Okay.
Okay, so I want you to get the paddle in your hand. It's very light.
Okay.
Not a heavy tool.
Okay. So first thing I think of when I see this, I feel this texture, right?
Yes.
So first thing I'm going to start doing is I'm going to rub it slowly across the skin. I'm going to, hit him with maybe a little couple pats here and there, slide over to the other side, and now this side's cooler, right? I'm now playing with a little temperature, and I'm playing with a little of the sensation. So it's got a little weight to a little thud to it.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to because like I said, you can't just sit there at the top the whole time, right? I'm kind of this is what I would use this as a warm up tool.
Yeah.
So I would get the kind of just a nice little to
kind of get that blood going. Yeah.
We're playing with each other a little bit. One of these guys. Oh, and another thing, just for people who are doing impact in general, you always want to try if you're going to try it on yourself. You don't have somebody use it on you. You always want to try it on the inside of your forearm because that's the most sensitive part of your body that you're going to have access to. So you want to have it at the most sensitive spot. So when you're using it on somebody else, you have that empathy at the most sensitive spot, not just at your thigh or whatever the case may be, right? So I'm going to definitely be using a lot of this. I might use the top to get a little bit. It almost feels
that
like
actually
a knife, maybe.
Yeah, down the back. I was going to say down the nape of the spine because of the curvature of it. I've noticed that it gets that sort of rise as well. So I love that you caught that part.
Absolutely, yeah. And like I said, it's got a nice little weight to it. This
unexpectedly,
side's
I think is what it is too.
That part. And this side is, because it's a little flatter, it's a little more stingy, right? If I get the other side's a little thuddier,
more thuddy.
So I can play around with that a little bit. Right?
Yeah.
If I flip it over, now we've changed the sensation completely.
It's gonna have a shock to it too because they wouldn't have been expecting it. If you did that same thud 3 times and then that 4th time switch to its thing, it's gonna have a little bit of a jolt. Exactly. And look, that adrenaline and that anxiety is not bad. It surges dopamine.
Yeah.
So it kind of gets
usually
you.
I'll get a little smile over the shoulder, like, "Oh, you playing?" It's
I'll be like, "You son of a bitch." I say it to him all the time. I'll be like, "Have your fun. I'm gonna fuck you up. Like, have your way. It will be my turn, and I will get mine back." I love actually.
That's nice.
You know what's so funny? On a guy, right? Do you mind if because guys, first of all, I feel like one of the areas on y'all body that makes y'all melt or fold or become putty is y'all chest area. Like men are so, chest forward, chest up. We say pounder's chest. This texture here, right? So but not from this direction. Put him in between your legs, okay? Wrap him around all that goodness, right? Put him in there like he your bit. Pretend this is him. That you go in here, you saying, "Big guy, how you doing, big guy?" And then run that up his chest, just like that, while you kissing him and you talking to him, and watch it. He gonna be. I love seeing men get those kind of reactions, but that kind of just But just sharing that because that can be one of those things that gets taken for granted. So you can rub his chest, you can massage his chest, you can do different things kneading, but every now and again, this is gonna offer a bit of a texture that's different from. So just kind of running it past their body, up their arms and down. You'd be surprised. These men be carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders too. Listen. So I love how you immediately. One use that I did try that you didn't was this is stupid, but it's not. No. This little point, the end of it, just because it was a knot, I was curious on.
Little whippies. Okay.
Feel that. No, seriously, it's a warm up. It's a warm up.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's not too bad at all.
It's not, but it's got a tiny sting to it. And I forget what it was that made me do that one day. I think I remember it was a corrective. So they said something smart to me and I was like, shut up.
Yeah, it's a little pop.
It was a little pop and I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, we got the paddle. Now I have another 2 things I'm going to grab, but I'm going to pass you one first and then I'll escalate, like you say, take it up from there, right?